formally announced his split with the black Muslim movement centered in Chicago. Malcolm was a top lieutenant in that movement. He's starting his own political organization here in New York City. Mr. X has been quoted as saying that the white man is by nature a devil and that he must be destroyed. Mr. X, is your organization bent on the destruction of the white man?
No, I don't think that you've ever heard any Muslim say anything about destroying the white man. Although when you listen to most whites, it appears that they're ready to destroy themselves. And listening to some of the debates that take place in the United Nations, I think most of them feel that they are destroying themselves. No one will have to destroy the white man. He will destroy himself.
What is the primary purpose of your new political social action organization?
We are organizing the Muslim Mosque Incorporated, which has as its spiritual base the religion of Islam, and has its political philosophy, political, economic, and social philosophy, black nationalism.
And just what do you mean by black nationalism? Is this the same thing as black superiority, or what?
Black nationalism means that the political philosophy of black nationalism means that the black man should be in control of the politics of his own community, that the politicians in the black community should be black men answerable only to the people of that black community. The economic philosophy of black nationalism means that the black man in the black community should be permitted to be re-educated to the point where he can see how to establish his own businesses and factories and control the economy of his own community, whereby he can employ himself, clothe himself, and house himself, instead of having to be a welfare recipient or constantly begging the white man downtown. And the social philosophy of black nationalism is that the black man should be proud of his own society. He should be ready and willing at all times to eliminate the ills and evils of his own society, and thereby not having to force himself into the white society where he is not wanted.
Today at the press conference, you've advocated the formation of Negro rifle and shotgun clubs, said that Negroes should take rifles and shotguns into their homes again for self-defense.
No, I said that in areas where the government has proven itself unable and or unwilling to defend the Negro from the vicious attacks of the racists and the bigots, and where their churches are being bombed and the little girls are being murdered, then it's time for the Negro himself. Since it is legal to own a shotgun and it is legal to own a rifle, it is time for that so-called Negro man to wake up and be a man and do what is necessary to protect his life and his property as other people in this country protect their lives and their property.
What's up, family? Welcome back to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Wood, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Patrick Irvin, aka Super Pat. And as you can see from the clip, we are jumping into black nationalism. Breaking down what black nationalism is, the origins of it, what does it look like today? Is it even viable? Is it possible? What does it take for black nationalism to exist? So, Pat, I know, one of the last shows you talked about yourself being a black nationalist and then PC being a Pan-Africanist. So I want to start with you, Pat. You know, we heard Malcolm X give a tidbit on what black nationalism is, but from your perspective and your studies, and of course being a student of Malcolm X and others as well, break down black nationalism for us.
Black nationalism is a pretty simple concept. You know, we're gonna break it down. We're gonna keep it simple. It's pretty simple. Black people, as a culture group in America, operate as a nation unto itself, meaning we are in control of the economics of our communities, the institutions, cultural, educational, family in our communities, politics in our community, both inter and intra, meaning how we interact and deal with each other in terms of power, and how we interact and deal with outsiders in terms of power. And it basically seeks to have black people establish themselves as a fully formed and outwardly presenting unified cultural group. Now, I emphasize outwardly appearing, because on the inside, we're allowed to have all these different groups that have all these different thoughts and beliefs. And like, you can have your Tariq Nasheeds and you can have your Boyce Watkins, and they can all have their own camps within the black nationalist structure. But that there's an understanding that when it comes to interacting with outside groups, even if we don't like each other, we present a somewhat unified front. Now, again, I'm not saying it has to be totally uniform and like it's people interacting with people. There are gonna be some blips, and I keep doing this because I don't want us, people develop these unrealistic standards of how it's supposed to look. So I'm pushing back against that. But by and large and on the whole, whenever anybody interacts with us, they understand that they're interacting with a larger community that has very unique desires, wants, and worldviews. And if you infringe on those things, the entire community will come to bear against you. So that is a simplified way of expressing black nationalism. It's simply black people getting together to control the resources and the politics and the appearances of their community by themselves with no exterior or outside influence or overbearing assistance. Does that make sense? Was that simple enough?
And that makes sense. It was straight down the pipe. All you got to do is swing, and you can try to hit it, but it's straight down the pipe.
Cool.
But one of the best parts about what you said to me is our outwardly appearance would be unified, but within the confines of this black nation, there is room for the differences that the black people may share. And I think that's a very powerful point, because we let so many petty differences divide us. So if this one person's philosophy is this, then and this one person's philosophy is this, is almost seem like there has to be a divide. Like I put out shorts earlier in the week, talking about the debate between Du Bois and Woodson, and not Woodson, but who was it? With W.E.B. Du Bois. No, Booker T. Washington. Yeah,
Booker T. I was gonna say Tuskegee.
Yeah. So and of course, I've always thought that we should have used both philosophies. We should have merged both philosophies and used them. I've always thought that, especially like when I first started learning about it, because the way I first learned about it was, hey, Booker T. Washington has this philosophy and W.E.B. Du Bois has this philosophy, and you have to choose one. But the older I got and the more I looked into the philosophies, I was like, well, they both are viable. Why aren't we? Why wasn't there a thought process to use both, to combine them, to be able to use both, and be able to use both of them, and be able to combine the strategies and be stronger. You can get it when you're good, but I think that, once again, I think that's powerful, because we have to be able to stop letting things. We have to stop letting things divide us so easily. Like, how you can't achieve black nationalism if we're always fighting about something. You can't achieve black nationalism if something is always going to be at the forefront for us to argue about. Somebody has to be the smartest, somebody has to be this, somebody has to be that. Like, for black nationalism, even Pan-Africanism, or even any other ideologies that people have, you still have to work together. They have to have a team concept, and people have to understand you got to fall in place somewhere if you want this thing to work. So I like how you articulated that. So PC, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, real quick, and if you are one of those people that can't let it go or that needs to argue the point, then that's cool too. That just means when we're structuring the community, you would be somebody that only deals with black people. Like, you wouldn't be one of those arms that has strong interactions with other groups, because we can't trust you to maintain the integrity of the unified front. So we can still use you.
Hey, so PC, from a Pan-Africanist standpoint, Do you think black nationalism is important? And if so, why is it important?
Well, first of all, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All the technical difficulties that I go through over here. So what, because I consider myself to be a black nationalist too.
Okay.
So, but and I think that it's important if we go back to how and I think the birth of black nationalism actually started with Malcolm. So and specifically with his speech, The Ballad of the Bullet, where he actually broke it down. You need all of these particular tribes to be able to establish nationalism in their particular countries. And then after identifying that all of these particular countries have established a semblance of black nationalism, then we can unify under the umbrella of Pan-Africanism. That was how Malcolm saw this vision going. And I firmly believe in that. I believe that in regards to this whole notion that black people are not a monolith, well, none of our enemies are monoliths. So,
right.
But they understand that they have to, if they want to achieve anything for their tribe, they have to do what's best for the whole of their community, of their versions of their nationalistic politics. That's where I believe we should be. I believe we should be, I believe we should be in that place where we can identify, well, I need these particular things over here in my city, in my neighborhood, because I have these particular issues that are particular to my particular situation. You got some cities that they have to deal with gangs. You have some cities where their open enemy might be, the Ku Klux Klan meeting down the road from their home. So you have two, but to come to a common goal that we build under this common flag that sort of like insulates us from all the other things, because I believe that the necessity for black nationalism is to promote, first of all, a foundation of power, but also to create a nuclear deterrent. So if we have a nation here and you have a nation over there, our nation might not be as big as yours. We might not have the weapons like you have, but our nation can inflict some harm upon you if you come and inflict some harm upon us. So you need to tread carefully in dealing with us, because we might not be able to do as much damage, but we can identify some of your soft spots and inflict some harm upon you. I think that's probably one of the most important parts about black nationalism.
Yeah.
That we and one of the biggest reasons for it.
But I just think it makes, and I'm glad you said I'm a black nationalist as well, because it makes sense for us to have, like, how can Pan-Africanism work if we don't have our power bases built? Like, it can't work. Like, you have to have black nationalism in America for other people to want to connect to something. If not, what are they connecting to? Who are they connecting with? Okay, you got a nation that may connect with individuals. How does that work? How does that help? Especially if you're fighting a global system, you can't have individual fractions just calling themselves certain things. Like, power bases literally have to be built for it to work.
Yeah, well, another part of that too, when we look at the United States of America, the United States of America is not a country. It's a corporation that incorporates 50 different countries under the concept of white supremacy, white nationalism. Every state is its own government.
Right.
When you talk about heads of state, that's what you're literally talking about. We have just got it conflicted because in civics courses here that you take and what you taught as a young person. When you learn about civics, it doesn't talk about the exclusivity of each state. But the fact of the matter is, each state had to be ratified individually before you had a United States of America, like it's in the verbiage.
Each state has its own constitution.
Each state has its own constitution, and each state can withdraw from the union if they so choose to.
Yeah. So Ron DeSantis is the president of Florida.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the analogy though is, in order for this United States to work, each individual state, all these 50 states have to be on the same plan, have to be all codified for the United States to work, which is a white European power base outside of Europe.
White nationalism.
Is and you know, the way this whole thing is put together in my mind was that black nationalism was Malcolm X's way to transition black Americans into Pan-Africanism, because we know that he grew up in a Pan-Africanist family. His parents were Garveyites. So I look at it as in every group there's an inter and an intra. You know what I'm saying? The intra, the things that are going on within that group, well, that would be black nationalism for black Americans. But it would be, Ugandan nationalism for Ugandans, the blah, blah, blah. And even within Uganda, you got your own culture groups,
right?
That are the intra to that. But the inter is the larger piece. You know what I'm saying? So in that, we got to be united. So even in terms of black nationalism, there's an inter, which is how we would interface or interact with white structures and the dominant white society. And then there's the intra, which is how black people that grew up in Florida would interact with black people that grew up in Philly, because those are going to be two different types of black people. Mm-hmm. But it is absolutely necessary, because then you alleviate some of the problems that you have. You have a larger structural framework that allows you to deal with some of the problems that Tariq Nasheed brings up when he talks about his problems with Pan-Africanism and how black folk from other parts of the world come into America and take resources from black people in America. Well, they can do that because there is no black nationalism at the start. And then you add on to that, there's no unified code that which would present itself if there was Pan-Africanism to stop it. So black people don't control the resources that these people are taking, which is a failure of black people to create a system of black nationalism. And then there is no code or no cultural penalty or larger framework that would say this is unfavorable,
right,
to stop it, which would be the larger Pan-Africanist expression of black people in the world fighting against white nationalism or white superiority, white racism.
On a large scale, a society was never created for black people within the nation, because that's what it would be, a nation within the nation. But also, another example to hammer home, like, in order for Europe to expel the Moors, different fractions of these European countries or these different European nations had to come together and unite. Most notably, Ferdinand and Isabella being able to unite and making Spain the power that it was. But the other European nations saw that, and they all fell in line to say, hey, if we can connect the right families and put the right pieces together, we too can become power bases. And look how Europe became, that power in the world. That's an example of, hey, putting like, these nations were at war against each other. Mm-hmm. But to become strong, they put their petty differences aside for the right reason, not totally, but they put them aside long enough to come together to form nations to be able to become powerful.
They had their Renaissance.
Right.
And their Renaissance was all based and steeped in their building of power. So when we talk about their Renaissance, it was creating and reshaping the image of white supremacy. And it started with the designing or the painting of the Last Supper. But it didn't start there.
But it was a significant thing.
Yeah, it was that was the whole purpose of Columbus's voyage to what we now call the Americas. It was to establish that image. And you had the four famous painters, but they weren't just painters. These were visionaries that were used to shape the images. And what was it? Donatello,
the Ninja Turtles.
The Ninja Turtles, right?
Yeah. Michelangelo, Raphael, Donatello, and Leonardo.
Yeah. So Da Vinci. So they were the ones who were utilized to generate that image. And they formed actually white nationalism out of the Dark Ages, through the teachings of the Moors. And so the Moors want to take credit for shit. You took credit for teaching these Europeans how to come out of darkness and to organize, and they used that shit against us. But that's what they did. And what Malcolm was trying to do was something similar. But, I don't think we give our enemies enough credit, because they have been able, through a term Patrick likes to use a lot, utilize epigenetics to demoralize us for centuries, to the point where if one of us seemed to be making too much noise, then there would be members within our factions within our groups that would rise up to take that loudmouth person down. We saw that with Malcolm. We saw that with Martin Luther King. We saw that with Fred Hampton. We've seen that with a bunch of brothers specifically who posed a threat, because these were the ones that had the power, the galvanizing force to bring masses of people together. Even so, they were killed, and all of them really were killed in their infancy. When you think about how they were taken out. And that was largely because there's groups of us that have been colonized in the mind and in our hearts, to the point where we see each other as the ops, and we see each other, and I'm talking about just here in America, but I'm also talking about the other parts of the Pan-African world. We see each other as things we can take advantage of, so that we can live this Eurocentric dream of rulership over our people. Because like I said last week, we still see each other as niggas. So if we still see the rest of y'all as niggas, I'm just the one that's smart enough to outsmart all the other niggas. Then what's going to happen is, when I get to the top, it's not going to matter how many niggas I betray. You know what I'm saying? So, and we see that all throughout history. Yeah. I mean, just the last 10 years, the xenophobic wars going on in South Africa, where you got these the bears that are over there amassing weapons, they're creating coalitions. Meanwhile, these Africans are killing each other because you got a store and you ain't from my part of you're not from my part of Africa. Hey. So, and that's not just to speak on that, but I mean, the nationalism that other people represent is only in pride, and it's similar to what we were talking about before with the HBCUs. The HBCUs could possibly be powerhouses if they actually invested in it and cared more about the HBCU than they did about the party and the shit that went on at the HBCU. That's what a lot of these other countries, and even blacks here in America, only time we really care about black history, any time we care about building something black, is when we think we're going to get prestige from people outside of our community to do so.
Hey, but when go finish your thought. Finish your thought.
But when it comes down to it, man, you got to give the white man credit, man. He did a damn good job at creating a group of dysfunctional Negroes that don't see no possibility in building anything against them, must have all the smoke and fire to tear anything we try to build down.
That's one of the things I was going to say right there. So yeah, perfect. But hey, look, HBCUs have the same problem as the WNBA. The people who supposed to support it don't support it. It is. That's the truth. The people,
put on my juice,
the main people who are supposed to support it don't support it, and that's why neither one of them are doing what they're supposed to do. Right now, I have a question for you all, because both of you say you all regard Malcolm as like you would say he was the first black nationalist. I want to make sure I'm not misquoting y'all.
Well,
Nah,
go ahead, John.
go ahead, PC.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I wouldn't say he was the first black nationalist,
Okay,
but I will say he was the first major national figure to speak directly to black nationalists as a concept, black nationalism as a concept.
so and I asked that because I was reading something earlier from the King's Institute at Stanford. They had an article on black nationalism, like the origins of it. And so they were talking about from their research, the origins of black nationalism could go back to Martin Delany, Marcus Garvey, and even Fard Muhammad.
Not Marcus Garvey. No.
I wouldn't even say Martin Delany.
I've heard the Marcus and I've read Marcus Delany, but I haven't. Definitely not Fard Muhammad. He wasn't even black.
Right.
So Stanford could stop that right now.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking, because when I was reading it, I was like, well, let me ask. Let me, because I'm not gonna sit and act like I'm well versed on the history of black nationalism. You know, most of my historical thing, I'm dealing with individuals, but I do know the historical stuff around it. But I'm not gonna act like I'm well versed on the origins of black nationalism. So that's why I'm bringing the question to the table for myself and others. So.
Martin Delany, I can see, but this is why I preface it with the first major national figure to speak on it. Martin Delany did have some components of black national. Like, let's be clear, the idea of black nationalism didn't start with Martin Luther King. It's an old concept. Or I'm sorry, with Malcolm X.
Right,
it's an old concept. There were plenty of people that spoke about it and wrote about it without using those terms in the past, about the black community being a self-identifying, self-fulfilling community. Like, this goes back to the abolitionist movement prior to even the freedom of slaves.
So even like the maroon communities and stuff.
Yeah, you can go all the way back to like the 1600s. If you're just looking for people that are actually talking about it. But somewhere along the lines, and I'm not sure where, maybe PC does, it got wrapped up in the Pan-African view of black people everywhere need to come together and unite to push back against white supremacy, which was a global thing. So even in that, there was still expressions of black nationalism being had in meetings and conversations and books, but the larger conversation was about white supremacy, both in America and abroad. That was like the dominant conversation from my research. Malcolm X was the first person with a national spotlight to step on the scene and say, yes, Pan-Africanism, but also black nationalism. And this is what I mean by black nationalism. Boom, 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 boom. To my knowledge, I could be wrong. People in the comments, they experts at everything. I'm sure they'll correct us. But to my knowledge, he was the first person to do that on that stage with that level of prominence.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you could possibly say Booker T. Washington. Was the first with the first real plan for black nationalism. Martin Delaney, from what I know, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on Martin Delaney, but from what I know, Martin Delaney assisted Abraham Lincoln's plan to repatriate Africa with Africans that were here on the continent of America, which led to the origins of the beginning. You know,
The back down.
the Liberia.
Yeah,
So,
right.
But so that's still not necessarily black nationalism. Malcolm was the first one that that actually spoke of black nationalism, and he spoke about it through the lens of Pan-Africanism. So it was more so Pan-Africanism would have been to us what the United Nations is to the global community. It would have been a bunch of nationalist countries, black nationalist area and spaces. So you want to say Jamaica, Trinidad, and you want to say Haiti. You want to say the other countries in Northern Africa that Malcolm had went on tour to link with, even Southern Asia. That was what he was referring to as you build nationalism where you are, and we work under this consolidated umbrella of black nationalism. So while I say Malcolm was first, I say Malcolm was the first because he was actually the one that got the ball rolling, like Pat said, on the national stage. Now, and in fairness to Booker T. Washington, he never had a chance to do it. The way Marcus Garvey played into it, because Marcus Garvey was trying to link up with Booker T. Washington.
Yeah.
And, you know, mysteriously, Booker T. Washington died on that train ride from New York to D.C. So, so I would give, so if we want to put a footnote in it, Booker T. Washington got the ball rolling on Do for Self way before Farag Muhammad. And in the process of, you know, mysteriously under some really suspicious circumstances, him dying on that train, going back to DC, he didn't have a chance to establish what he was trying to build. And for all that intended purpose, neither did Malcolm. But Malcolm was the one that actually put the platform out there, publicly speaking. And at that particular time, with the way that mass media had operated, it was a message that was more readily generated to the people that needed to hear it.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so
and
go ahead. My bad. Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say that to add to that a little bit. The reason why I'd say not really to Marcus Garvey is because not that he didn't impact it and influence it. As I said, Malcolm X's parents were Garveyites.
Right. Right.
But Garvey was Pan-Africanism. Like, you know, man was one of his most famous quotes is something to the effect of Africans, you don't have to set foot on the continent to be an African.
Right.
And even Martin Delaney, the reason I say kind of is because it's like it touches it in the same way that most, in my opinion, Pan-Africans touch it. Martin Delaney was another one that was like African for the Africans. I think that's his quote. So, you know, you go and you know, Martin Delaney got to live a full life. I think he died in the 70s. He switched parties a couple times and a whole bunch of other stuff happened. But none of so Stanford, like, I know they got a lot of high-powered, expensive people that get paid a lot of money to do
think
shit.
tanks.
Right. So I'm not like, it is what it is on that. But from my research and my understanding, like when you make a statement, when you add in like Wallace Fard, and you add in, you know, like Martin Delaney and Marcus Garvey, and now it seems like you're just throwing a bunch of black names at the board, some of which ain't even black. Like I said, you're just throwing fucking names associated with prominent black movements and time periods on the board.
and connecting the dots, because so many different black people had similar ideas throughout history. It seems real disingenuous.
Now, the question is, out of all the articles that I came across, why did I pick that one? You know the answer? Because I like starting shit.
well, hold on, because to go back to the Marcus Garvey thing real quick. Marcus Garvey was asked by his fellow Jamaicans, are you Jamaican? And his response was, why would I choose an island when I have a whole continent that I call home? So that speaks, to his more so to his Pan-African ideologies and so forth.
Yeah.
And let us not forget that, an act of Pan-Africanism actually took place in what we now call Haiti. When you had that was the first consolidation of, I believe, 20 African countries as they put their forces together to defeat not one, not two, but three European giants. Right. And by the way, if y'all want to hear Joseph Ward say that, you can just catch him and copy the Independence Day Project. That's Shane's blood.
In that.
But
website.
Right. So but I think that and fuck Stanford.
For the record.
Yeah, for real, because I'm tired of these institutions that if you didn't take part in the slave trade, you definitely still benefited from it, and all of these prestigious white universities have done so. You don't get a chance to come and rewrite history for us. Like, that's not something we should always reject it. And like I said before, Stanford has one of the most powerful think tanks in the world.
Well, in reality, that's one of the reasons why I picked the article, because I wanted to get some understanding. So
yeah, they have one of the most powerful think tanks in the world. I mean, they even have a whole Hegelian way of operating in regards to how they put information out. So, it's I think really, if we got over our fear of what they would do to us and realize what we can do for each other, and I'm wording that carefully because we're on YouTube. I think that our circumstances in this country would change overnight. We wouldn't have to beg them for reparations. They'd be offering us bribe money to shut down.
They have two. You got two decisions to make: either barbecue or mildew. And once again, you know what that means. So let me ask this question, because a historical groundwork for Black nationalism, we just laid that out. So we have origin. So if you didn't know, now you know. So in reality, in the real world that we live in, when we go outside, especially if you don't have your own blinders on, what does Black nationalism look like today, like in reality? What is it? Is it alive? Is it viable? What does it look like?
You want me to answer that?
Go ahead. You already start shaking your head. So.
Man, Black nationalism is dead. There's no semblance of it anywhere to be found other than small pockets. And even there, Black nationalism is not just an ideology, it's the way you function. And like Patrick was describing earlier, it's a place where you actually control the politics of the land that you live on. There's nowhere in America that Black people do that. Not even all Black towns. In all Black towns, you got a white police force with a white sheriff, with white city council members or town council members. Places where Black people are the most dominant in populations. You look at cities like Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, where the majority of the population is Black. Do you see any building or semblance of power in any of those cities for Black people? And in fact, can you even trust the Black politicians that are in those places to do for Black people? Just for instance, on my block, they put up a sign pop signs all up and down the street, waking us up on an early Sunday morning, telling us that our cars had to be moved off the block for specific hours during a certain day of the week so they can do street cleaning. It's been a whole month and not a broom, not a dustpan, nothing came through. And this is city ordinance in a black city during the election year. So when we understand or take into account of what black nationalism was supposed to be, it just doesn't exist. And in fact, you get more resistance from black people trying to do for black people by black people than you do for anybody else in this community and society. So by that alone, black nationalism doesn't work. And then the majority of the people that want to be conscious are sicker than a motherfucker. You have to cut that out.
No, because look. Okay, so you just all you did was tip it off, because I was going to say, before I throw it to Pat, I was going to say, I would expect the conscious community. Well, matter of fact, most of the talk about black nationalism that I hear comes from the conscious community, but there's no building in this community. So black nationalism is a concept. Like that's one thing Neely Fuller talks about in the compensatory code, about concepts versus reality. Black nationalism, in my opinion, today is a concept. It's a concept on a large scale. Like you say, there are pockets of people who are working together doing what they need to do, but that's still not technically black nationalism. That's trying to build up the black nationalism. You're trying to get there, but technically it's not black nationalism. Keep doing what you're doing. Anybody who out there doing it, keep doing what you're doing. And if there's any way that we can help you, let us know. But to get to black nationalism, we got to do things. And the conscious community got to be honest about, we said it before in earlier videos, too many people in the conscious community, y'all just in church. You're just in church looking for a good word. And every time you get a good word, your soul is fed. And that's it. You just need a good word.
Come on now, Joe.
I believe consciousness should be not just what the information you consume, but how you use the information to better your situation. And if we're going to go with that logic, then we ain't conscious because we ain't building. But in order to have black nationalism be a reality today, folk got to build. And especially the people who keep championing black nationalism, it's more than rhetoric. It has to be more than the concept. And the reason we keep getting our asses whooped because we still in concept stage.
Man, we ain't got no damn Nash. We got a bunch of scholars, a bunch of cats that want to debate you all day. They'd be just as comfortable in Starbucks as they would anywhere surrounded by black people. With candles and incense burning and eating their little crumpet and sipping on some mocha cheese capolato or whatever the hell that is. And I ain't going front. I drink Starbucks, but I don't sit there and gossip.
But I mean, but let's just be real. Yeah, you go to Starbucks. Because how many black-owned coffee shops where you at? Because there ain't none around here.
But we got a few here in Philly, but they suck.
Well, that's a whole nother thing. Hey, black business.
And it ain't about black.
You got to do better.
But it ain't even about that. The black coffee shops are not a blame for. We got a sister that got a coffee shop, right? And I went to this coffee shop. Not one black employee in the damn coffee shop. And when I asked her about it, I said, how come, I said, I noticed your staff. She said, yeah, we're diverse. No, you're not. You're the only black motherfucker in here. Not diverse. All right. Mark Lamont Hill has a coffee shop that don't cater to blacks. They cater to the LGBTQ.
Who you said? Who you said? When you say that, as you say his name, it go downhill.
I'm just saying, that's in Philadelphia. And, I know brothers that, work with him. They're good brothers, and good sisters. But the bottom line is, that's the climate there. We have, and yeah, Philly cats, I'm calling y'all names out now because, I've been playing nice for the last decade and y'all ain't did shit but shit on the black community and make black men look bad. So it's time for y'all to get called to the carpet. None of these places It's like pageantry, but it ain't no building going on. It ain't no foundational work going on. And, you know, because of that, we don't have nothing to show for it. A lot of people, and this is why I hate Black Lives Matter. I don't care about the cause. I don't care about, because people are trying to separate it. Well, I'm for the movement, not from the group. Ain't no separating that bullshit. It is one big ass scam. And one of the things it did was it fooled our young people into thinking that they were being Black nationalists in that particular outfit, laying down in the middle of highways, doing die-ins and shit, laying down and doing
was at church.
Right. So doing all this fake protesting, but you raised hundreds of millions of dollars and you didn't even build a clubhouse. So these cats didn't even have a place to assemble. They didn't have a place to assembly. So
nothing.
What do we have? We have a bunch of scammers. You know, I know cats that identify, I'm a Black nationalist, I'm a Pan-Africanist, and what do y'all meet? Sunday morning, just like church. So, you know what I mean? It's to the point where like, we can't find nobody from the community, because community is like, I'm not doing that dumb shit. Y'all ain't about shit, and y'all ain't built nothing here, and y'all haven't even created a situation where it would influence the young folk. That's why I say Malcolm was the first true Black nationalist, because not only that, but look at what came after him. You had the Panthers, and for those people, Panthers was a socialist outfit, but they became one as a political ploy to get global assistance for the proletariat. They wanted to apply global pressure on America to do right by Black folk. So, but they started off as Black nationalists. They were patrolling Black neighborhoods. You can't get no blacker than Oakland. And so when we, you know, when you think about how Malcolm started, the whole Black Power movement was inspired by Malcolm X. So that's why I say, so I go back to that, and that's not to take anything away from, you know, the ancestors that came before him, because like I said, I think very highly of Booker T. Washington, the things he was doing. He was playing chess. A lot of people to this day call him a sellout because he was part of the eugenics society. And I'm like, how the hell would you know what's going on in the eugenics society unless you were sitting in those meetings? And by the way, he was still building an army that people didn't know about prior to his suspicious untimely death.
Definitely built an institute that is still providing the Black people to this day. So.
Man, COINTELPRO actually got started with Marcus Garvey. I mean, not Marcus Garvey, with Booker T. Washington. They and that's how they knew that he had to go. And we can thank our wonderful, wonderful members of the Black Boule for allowing that to happen.
Straight up. Pat, go ahead, jump in. What is Black, in your opinion, what does Black nationalism look like today?
I think you guys hit it on the head. It looks like a concept. You know what I'm saying? It looks like a theory. Because we don't have the cultural integrity or the cultural or institutional infrastructure to actually put it into practice. So if you're asking me like what's an example of Black nationalism that you can look around and see, there isn't one on the national scale. Now maybe there's something on a local level in small cities throughout the country.
But if there is, I don't think they need to be broadcasted.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like that, there could be groups out there doing things that we just don't know about because it hasn't achieved national prominence. But then you run into the theoretical problem of, well, if it's not something that's achieving national attention, then is it really Black nationalism if other people in the community don't know about it? So, you know, you start running into all of these colored lanes when you start, and all of those are valid. I'm not saying those are not valid questions. If you are serious about Black nationalism, then Black people everywhere, Black people all over the country, at bare minimum, need to have some idea, at least in your region. But
Yeah.
then you're talking about black regionalism at that point, which is intra to black nationalism. So you can keep. That's why I talk about the intra thing. You can keep breaking it down.
It can go to a rabbit hole.
Right. So, but in terms of the broader scale conversation, is there black national? No. And will there be? No. Are we moving in a direction that's going to? No. Look, as long as you got people standing up saying we are not a monolith, as if that's some sort of valid point, that statement is the total opposite of where we need to be going with black nationalism. To stand up and broadcast to the entire world that we are not all on one accord is the exact opposite of what a black nationalist should do. And you still have people getting on TV thinking that those are valid points. Another key concept of black nationalism is cultural competency in education, historical, being able to remember what happened and the results of what happened. She brought up a good point about Black Lives Matter. Bunch of kids laying down in the street thinking they're doing something new. That in and of itself shows a failure of black nationalism.
They got the same results. Well, they got even worse results. Worse results.
They are literally wearing shirts that says "I am not my grandfather," with the sheer ignorance and not understanding that you are doing exactly what your grandparents did. So I don't understand and then beyond that, your grandparents were doing it with a much greater threat, much greater risk of harm. We keep everywhere you look, right? You see example after example after example of us not moving in a black nationalist direction, which is why I say at this point, I'm not a Pan-Africanist, not because I don't believe in it and not because I don't think that it's the next step in black nationalism, because it absolutely is. Once you develop your black nationalist identity, the next step is Pan-Africanism. But if I don't really see any progress being made towards black nationalism, even in theory, then Pan-Africanism is a pipe dream.
It's dead. Yeah. But that's why I continue to say I believe too many of us, or even most of us, black people in America, even around the world, don't understand racism. We don't even those who I believe people who are speakers in the conscious community don't understand racism the way they say they do. Because if they did, they would operate different. They would speak different. We would move different. Things would happen different. If we keep falling, like you said, we keep falling to the same patterns, doing the same thing over and over. Now we know we still looking for our next Martin. We still looking for our next Malcolm. We still looking for somebody to come lead us and somebody to come save us and all these things here. And those are factors to why black nationalism is non-existent today. That's why it's no more than just a concept, because we have too many people not willing to do.
Let me add on to that real quick. One, those are more examples as to why black nationalism doesn't exist. The fact that we waiting for some long dead person to come back and save us or be reincarnated, that that's a whole show as to all of the problems with that. But then on top of that, to your other point, we got a very good example of this with Tamika Mallory. What's the girl name? T. Mallory. I don't even. Yeah, the whole post she put out when the girl went missing, talking about like putting the onus and blaming the white power structure for not using their resources to find this missing black girl. And I'm not even getting into whether or not she was missing or why she was missing or anything like that. I'm just talking about the tweet she put out. That was not a tweet made from somebody that understands racism, white supremacy.
Right.
That was a tweet made from somebody that has made a lot of money pretending like they understand racism, white supremacy to a larger group of people that also don't understand racism, white supremacy, or the role that black people have in propagating it. Because that tweet was a direct call for the propagation of white supremacy. Suppose, theoretical world, now I'm gonna shut up. Suppose white people did come together. They put out drones. They put submarines. They drilled a hole underground and filled it with water so that they could put submarines in there to look for this lady,
But
right? And they had all the ordnance, military technology, satellites, and everything, right? And then suppose they found this lady. What do you do now, Miss Mallory? Oh, I know what you do. You thank white people for doing what you couldn't. How is that black nationalism? How is that helpful for the black community, creating more dependence on white people? Now, in this example, since we like to give examples, what you should have done was take your ass down there and go walk through some trails and look for her and encourage other people to do the same. I digress. I'm done.
But I mean the fact that you expect America or factions of America or organizations, corporations in America to put the same energy behind a black woman out of the blue who went missing, who whatever she did, faked her missing, whatever she did. I just learned about it today. I don't know, but they're going to put the same energy behind that they will a bunch of people who can actually buy a submarine and rent a submarine and go big, right. But I ain't want to say it. I want to these motherfuckers.
No, say it. Billionaires. No,
I want to say it like this.
If any of y'all in the comment section go missing,
they ain't looking for you.
You ain't
like
a billionaire.
Look,
they not gonna give you billionaire treatment.
If you can afford to get on the submarine and just go in the ocean, bitch, you got real resources. You got real resources.
But
so you really expect the same type of treatment? That's just ignorant. That shows ignorance and a lack of leadership.
But they did amass resources, massive resources. They had a multi-jurisdictional state search for this woman, and what they found was quite astonishing.
Yeah,
because they didn't find no damn baby. What they did find though is that even though her AirPods and iPods and all her iPhone accessory things that could be tracked were located in the car, that bag of snacks she bought from Target wasn't. Where's the snacks? Forget the child for a second. Where's the snacks? All right, now I'm stop, man.
He had to go into facts. We was trying to keep it abstract because I just learned about it today too.
Yeah, so, literally 2-3 hours ago.
Nah, but here's the thing, right? Because I don't agree with the fact that they're looking for a hero. I think black people are looking for a scapegoat.
Absolutely.
Because you think about it, every time we bring somebody up, they have to be flawless. And if they have one issue, now all of a sudden, I knew I couldn't trust that nigga. We look for reasons to not trust anybody because let's face it, man. Negroes are comfortable the way the world is right now. You get to still have access to streaming television networks. You get to have access to a warm bed, warm meals. You get to have access to, irrigation systems, your toilet flushes. You could take a nice hot shower or a bath if you want. Man, motherfuckers is talking about going on vacations. That's their relationship goals, going on vacations. So if your priorities are like that, you don't really care about building up black nationalism. You're perfectly fine eating some apple pie and trying your damnedest to establish your role in the American dream. And so even the people who have access to this, let's think about it for a second. How nationalistic are you when you understand that all our smart devices are powered by what literally can be identified as modern day slavery with all the damn mining that's taking place for the natural resources and in the Congo. Like we're on, but the same devices will complain about what's happening about the coltan and all the different resources that are being taken and the millions of black lives that are being that is costing, but we'll complain on the same device that those lives were sacrificed for. So it's like we really are delusional when it comes to this, and that's probably the biggest reason why we don't have people turning up. You go over to Europe right now. You go to Spain, you go to France, they're turning up. And you know what I'm saying? And they don't have near as many atrocities going on with them as we have with us.
Because we like being scammed. Because that's my only pushback on what you just said. Or you can add in, I think we like being scammed more than anything else. Yeah, we looking for scapegoats and all these things here, but we like, black people like for somebody to make them feel good and for somebody to lie to them, and we love fruitless trees.
That in itself.
Right.
And that's why I go back to the formation. My bad, Joe. I just want to say one thing.
Good.
That's why I go back to the formation of this modern black church that was established on plantations. And then you had black Southern preachers reestablish those same churches in northern cities. So every church that was established in the north came from somebody from down south. Methodist churches, the Baptist churches, all those churches. And in those churches, for black people, they didn't even really read the scripture. They would cherry pick the scripture to make you feel good. And nowadays, niggas only want to feel good. And that's why you have somebody that'll debate you, because they don't care about being right. They care about winning, and they'll win at any cost. They don't care about progress. They just want to feel good. When Obama was president, ooh, look at my president walk. Ooh, my president could sing at the Apollo. What about his policies? You a fucking hater. Why are you hating?
Hey,
okay.
Hey. Fruitless trees.
There you go.
Too many. Look, let me get my hands on some of these resources a lot of these other people got. Hey, run us the donations that y'all want to run to everybody else. I mean, we can do some stuff.
You said something really powerful though, there, Joe. You said fruitless trees.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what motivated our ancestors before is those trees used to have strange fruit on them. We don't see enough strange fruit these days. And I'm not promoting it. I'm just talking about that's what motivated one of the things that motivated our ancestors in the past to get busy.
I just want the reason. I just want access to a fraction of the resources. But let me get my hand on the amount of resources some of these other people got. Man, please do some things. Go ahead, Pat. My bad.
I think, because I do agree with you, Joe. I think we're looking for scapegoats, and I do think we like to get scammed because we don't judge everybody equally. Some people get more favorable treatment when they step out into the spotlight than others, and it seems to be that the people that are genuinely trying to do something positive and beneficial for the community get spit roasted, and the people that's just talking a bunch of bullshit, you know, they get blowed out. They getting heady more in the telly.
Because you can have mountains and mountains of evidence of people not doing shit, and people still following them.
Absolutely. I mean, we go back to the previous examples we've used before, some of which were talked about in this show, others was talked about in previous shows. But I think one of the problems that we're running into is not. I agree with PC. I think back in the day, strange fruit was motivating our ancestors. I also think there was the visual of visual of seeing racism. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
but that's the
they saw that there was a difference between the way they were treated and the way that white people were treated.
But that's the genius of the white power system, is and that's the genius in the refinement of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's also the one of the things I think that's real interesting, right? I do think that we don't give our opponents enough credit, and I agree with PC. We've been saying it for years. We don't give enough respect to white people and their ability to maintain structures, and we don't give enough respect to all of the things that they've put us through, all of the things that we've put ourselves through, and how nowadays they can continue to, the system pretty much is on autopilot right now. They don't even have to patrol the community patrols and polices itself. You see a black person getting too far out of line, white people don't have to put that nigga back in his place. Niggas will.
Yep.
So, we running into those types of situations, and then there's a failure to be critical about it. Like anytime, like I still go back, and I've mentioned it 100 times, but it was such a powerful example to me in real world in the modern day, because I haven't, I don't participate in forums and panels a whole lot anymore. But seeing Professor in that thing where he tried to talk to those black people about the introduction of feminism into the black community and how they use the magazines to do it, and just seeing the vitriol and how not that it was shut down, but the way it was shut down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They treated him like he was the worst person ever. Like, how dare you tell us the truth?
Right. And that's what you see regularly. Like, it's not a simple disagreement where you say, well, brother, I disagree with the way that you've put these facts together. I'm not disputing the facts, because facts can't be disputed. I dispute the conclusion you get from the facts. That's a conversation if you want to have it. We can disagree on that, but it's a conversation if you want to have it. When we're so upset by the presentation of the facts that we don't even allow the way that they're being put together, the theory that I've come to because of these facts, to even be entered into the conversation and entertained, like, that is a prime example of black folk keeping themselves in a place of not being able to understand what's happened to us and what we need to do to change it. One of Malcolm X's most powerful quotes was regarding the ignorance in the world, and he was saying, all we need is light, because when there's light, there's knowledge, and when there's knowledge, there's understanding, and where there's understanding, there's patience, and where there's patience, there's unity. But it all starts with the light. We get mad at motherfuckers for turning the light on, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, because now you got to be responsible.
Man, listen.
Hey,
and because when Pat brought that up, man, I kind of had a PTSD moment about that day, where that sister, that group of women, and that one treacherous brother who seemed like he couldn't wait for me to be in that position. It really speaks to the fact that we don't really give a fuck if the house burns down if we're the ones holding the torch.
Some of us trying to burn it down.
There you go. And so it goes back to a question you asked earlier. Do we have black nationalism? We can't have black nationalism because black nationalism would stump shit like that out. We have sectors of people who are pro-black. We don't have black nationalism. Because even in the pro-black areas, they still don't control their politics. They still don't control their land, their resources. I mean, I remember one time people told me, well, we have a section in Washington, D.C. I said, do y'all own a supermarket? No, but we have a marketplace. I said, a flea market?
Right.
PG County, same thing. I mean, we talked about Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas was part of legislation that helped remove one of their congressional seats. They don't have that power. And when we don't see the need to do so because we have so much intra-hatred for one another, and then we get to a place where, and I was talking to y'all earlier, man, I was talking to a sister, like, why do y'all consistently share negative things about black men on social media? And her response was, because I know somebody that went through it. And me and Pat was talking because one of the things Pat said was, as black men, we have terrible experiences all the time with our women. But we don't try to isolate it or paint a picture of black women in that particular way. Not all women. We might talk about a situation. And I'm not bringing that up to get into the gender stuff that's, people can't really handle. But I'm bringing it up for a set, but to make a point, like there is an intra hatred that that we are born with now. I can't even say we're not born with it. It's reinforced through individual stories. People aren't even living these experiences, but we find comfort in being able to cast a dark cloud over aspects of our community. You can't have Black nationalism if we still have that culture that's very comfortable with destabilizing and destroying the image of Black people just because they think it's cute, just because it's something to do. It's just no way to have that. And because people don't really see a need for Black nationalism, because they are comfortable in their dwellings, that's going to be the strife. And by the time people are uncomfortable enough to do something about it, they're not going to have the resources to maintain anything because they weren't prepared for that day when it comes.
Hey, the women or anybody who take personal experiences or like things that they from their personal life, and I know one person, I know two people, I know this, and you apply that to the mass of a group. Grow the fuck up. Grow the fuck up. Grow the fuck up. That's one of the mindsets like that don't help us, right? You got to grow the fuck up. I don't give a damn who you are. Grow up. Because you can't on one hand say, hey, you can't on one hand have these experiences that are espoused to you, and you can say, hey, that's not everybody. But then on the other hand, you be like, that's everybody. You know what the fuck you doing. You know exactly what you're doing. Grow the fuck up, because it's not helping. One of the things I was going to ask is the fractured relationship between, not even fractured, just the whatever word, torn, fractured, whatever, fucked up relationship between Black men and Black women right now in America. It's too many Black men and too many Black women that don't like each other, and we too many things that fighting each other. But ideas or concepts like that, like thought processes like that, even or feelings like that, that's dumb as shit. Grow up. How to stop complaining about racism and white supremacy if we're gonna keep doing dumb shit to ourselves. Stop complaining. I don't want to hear nothing about what white men or white women doing or none of these people doing if you gonna purposely be a part of some dumb shit. Like, you purposely doing that. You can't tell me you don't understand what you're doing. You know what the fuck you doing. Grow up. Like, we'll never get past this. We'll never get the way we need to be. All this shit we talk about is just going to be in concept form because we can't take the necessary steps to do what we need to do. We got to grow up. We got to get past this shit. This is not about winning. This is not about being right. We all getting our asses kicked. All of us. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick. To all of those people, because so I don't have no sympathy for them. I've had nothing but bad experiences. Well, I won't say nothing, but I've had several really, really, really negative experiences with women, both as a young man and as an older adult. And I still give the women in my circle the benefit of the doubt. I'm still cordial with new women that I meet. You won't hear any stories about how Pat was an asshole. Not even from my ex-wife. Now, she might say I was an asshole in the relationship, but she'll say I'm cool people in generals. But you know what I'm saying? But I've had some of the most traumatic experiences that one human being can have with another one. Experiences that are usually only reserved for women in terms of, oh my God, that's so sad. Because when I mention my experiences, I get accused of being gay for not liking it. So with that, that's context clues. but I still go into new interactions without the sort of vitriol. So anybody that's going through something like a traumatic experience like that, get therapy, get help, and stop making the rest of the world pay for the experiences you had with a previous individual. Nobody else has to put up with that. And if they tell you to shut the fuck up and get the fuck away from them, that's their right to do so. And honestly, I think more people need to start saying that to people to encourage people to get help. And again, I'm saying that as somebody that's experienced it and understands on a particular level what people are going through.
And for those who hear the stories of those who go through it, and you still generalize from that, go stick your head in the tailpipe. Stick your head all the way up a tailpipe, because you're deliberately being divisive. You're deliberately doing that. Oh, I know two people who went through that, so all men ain't this. Oh, I know two men who went through that, so all women ain't this. Man, the first time I heard a man say some stuff like that at the women, I'm looking at him like, you a dude, you know that, right? Like, because I never heard a dude generalize all women because of certain things. Like, we've all gone through bad stuff, but to just say all of this, all black men, all black women, man, grow the fuck up, people. Grow the fuck up.
And see, we all have experiences. You already know my experience from the last year. But to put that on all women would be disingenuous. And not only disingenuous, but that's just not how we operate. And to see that it's cool to make blanket statements like that about brothers, even though it don't apply, because all we care about is being cute, and we don't care about the damage this takes to your image as black men. I'm like, at this point, man, I'm actually just cutting people off, because if you're misandrous like that towards then you're a white supremacist. And that's just
you support your
right.
Actions are supporting the system of white supremacy, and your actions are also showing your ignorance as to the understanding of the system of white supremacy and how it works against you.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be somebody, well, what about the men? And I'm like, see, the problem with that statement is you're not denying the first part of it. And see, when you make flippant, tit for tat responses, that's not accountability. So, and that's probably the biggest reason why we don't have black nationalism now, is there's no accountability.
Well, I mean, you can't have black nationalism if you can't build black families.
Oh, wait a minute, man, because there's some people out there now saying you don't need black men to have black families. You just need the women and the children.
And them the same mugs who always crying protection. Because
the lady we talked about earlier in that camp.
Yeah. As well as what was the one that said she wouldn't date the bus driver? She need the bus.
That lady. Look, I don't even know why that lady's opinion even matters.
But she's promoting something right now for single motherhood and saying you don't need men, you just need male donors, sperm donors.
And when the strong and the oppressors and the colonizers come knock on your door to take what they want, remember that. Remember, you chose to be unprotected. Remember that you can't build a nation if your ass don't have families, man, woman, child. The nuclear family has to exist. Hey, I'm not gonna be the person who fight other family structures, whatever. But the nuclear family has to exist in order to build a nation to resist white supremacy.
Yeah, it all starts with the family. Ain't that something?
But at our trashy, terroristic culture, we promote single parenthood as if it's a badge of honor and celebrate it. Your single parenthood is celebrated. It shouldn't be celebrated. It shows our ignorance and our weakness. It is not helping our overall image. Most of us really don't even understand how your image matters. How other people view you matters. If people view you as a threat, they move different. If people view you as a powerful nation, they move different. If people view you as a peon, they're going to step on you.
Yeah. And if people view the people who are identified as your protectors as weak because they're consistently under attack from the ones they're supposed to be protecting, then that leaves your community extremely vulnerable. And we're seeing it internationally now, where those who want the protection are going off in foreign spaces and are getting the brakes beat off of them because they recognize that they're proud and independent and things of that nature, and therefore not worthy of protection. And I'm not talking about things happening in this country. I'm talking about the perceived image of our women internationally, which is leaving them open to being assaulted by both women and men of other communities. And if you step outside of the protection, then whatever happens to you is your responsibility.
Hey, a lot of these women over here, they like to, turn their nose up to Arab culture and like cultures from the Middle East, where the women are under a whole nother level, a whole nother way of living and culture. Go mess with one of them women and see what happened to you.
No, they're under the protection of the men.
Say it again.
They're under the protection of their men.
Hallelujah.
And the combative relationship. Yeah.
That's how that's a component of nationalism.
There you go. Sharia
taking
law.
Care of your home, taking care of your people. Pat, you was gonna say something?
No.
All right. but not, and to not be the dead horse, we're gonna end this here. But we wanted to make sure we get a good solid foundation on what Black nationalism is, but also look at what Black nationalism is today. I don't think it's probable anytime soon for a lot of the various reasons that we just discussed. So is it possible? There's a possibility, but the probability right now is low. We control raising that probability. We control that. It's all in our hand. The ball is in our court. It's just up to us to do something different. Let's put some damn fruit on them trees. Let's stop. Let's get out of the feel-good politics. Let's get away from just wanting and needing to feel good and just wanting a good word. What about good actions? Building some real stuff. Stop talking about Black generational wealth. Stop talking about Black. If I see another Black Wall Street, God damn, what y'all do? Y'all goddamn research and learn about all the other Black economic centers that happen in America. How many goddamn Black Wall Streets we got to have? And you don't even really understand the concept of Black Wall Street because you ain't building nothing. You're not connecting with other people to build a foundation, a structure, nothing. It's like everything else, it's in concept. Let's move from concept to reality. Can we do that?
No.
That way we can really have Black nationalism.
No.
Hey, man. With that being said, I'm Joseph Ward. He's Super Patrick. PC, Professor Carl Tone Jones. FetLifeStation.com, 7 p.m. tonight. FetLifeStation.com, 7 p.m. tonight. PC going in how he does. Make sure you support the brother the same way y'all support over here. Hey, love you all. And catch this next video.